Welcome to Vegan Food and Living's Simply Vegan podcast with me, Holly Johnson, and my co-host, Gabriella Clark. With a new episode live every Tuesday, we discuss the latest vegan news, taste test the newest vegan products, and chat to some of the leading names in veganism. Hello and welcome to this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Whether you're new or a seasoned listener, we are so happy to have you here. If you enjoy listening to this week's show, we'd love it if you shared it with your friends. Get everybody on board. Let's get everyone going vegan or cutting down on their meat and fish and dairy and living a more sustainable life. Head over to YouTube where you can listen to us each week. You can also download us on iTunes and all the app stores. And you can also follow us on Instagram at Vegan Food and Living and at Simply Vegan Podcast. So let's dive into our news and reviews section. So each week, Gabriella joins me for our taste tests and our news chat. Then we go on to the interview after that. So first up, news literally has just come in today that Burger King have added a vegan chicken burger to the menu. It's the vegan Royale and it's certified by the Vegan Society, which is amazing. Yeah, it's created by the vegetarian butcher. So it's great that these big brands are kind of turning to these niche vegan brands to, provide them with these plant-based options. So it's not something we've tried yet because it's literally just launched today. But what did you think of the story, Gabriella?
I have to say, reading through the information in the press release, I was really impressed. My immediate reaction, I'm often quite put off by, big fast food chains doing a vegan option personally in terms of me trying it, because I am a bit worried about cross-contamination, or have they definitely used, the vegan mayo, and sometimes that can put me off a bit. But the efforts that Burger King seem to have gone to really make this 100% vegan friendly. It's been approved and accredited by the Vegan Society. Like you say, they've worked with the vegetarian butcher and PETA have got involved. So I think kudos to Burger King for putting in such a huge amount of effort to make this really authentically and reassuringly vegan.
Yeah, it'd be great to try it. I mean, like you, I don't tend to go to fast food restaurants anymore. Obviously in my 20s, maybe I did. You might be feeling a bit worse for wear after a student night out or something. You might head over to Burger King or McDonald's. So yeah, I haven't been to a Burger King for a long time, but it's just great that these options are there. And, people might not even be vegan, but if they have the choice, then they might reach for the vegan option instead of the meat option, which, is helping towards cutting down on greenhouse gases and things like that. They're encouraging meat-free Mondays at the moment, which is great. So if you download the app, I know during April, I'm not sure about May, but definitely during April, so you've got about another week to make the most of it. If you have the app, on Mondays, you can get the vegan Royale for just $1.99, which is a bargain.
Amazing.
I think they kind of had to go for it with this one because there was a lot of publicity, wasn't there, about their plant-based beef burger in inverted commas, the plant-based Whopper, should I rather, because it's plant-based, but it's cooked on the same grills as the meat burgers. So that was a real disappointment. And sadly, that's still the case. They're still cooking them with the meat burgers. So that's still not an option for us vegans. But like you say, they've obviously tried to make amends with this one. And it's good news.
Yeah, the lengths they've gone to for sure. And reading some of the insight from the vegetarian butcher, their mission is to help people make easy and tasty plant-based switches. And I know, a vegan option at a chain like Burger King might not be the right choice for every vegan. Some people don't feel comfortable, supporting those brands, or they don't feel comfortable eating in the same restaurant. But I think encouraging everyone, not just vegans, but vegetarians or flexitarians or people who, meat reducers, shall we call them. A really tasty, easy plant-based switch is amazing.
So, as we're on the subject of plant-based meats or mock meats, whatever you want to call them, we did a taste test this week on this. This isn't, so I expect you've heard of it. This isn't bacon is one of the best-selling vegan bacon products. And they've got some new products out this week. So we taste tested that this isn't vegan bacon, and also the new This Isn't Bacon lardons. What did you think of them?
So I am a huge long-standing fan of This Isn't Bacon. It's a pretty big staple in my weekend diet, I have to say. A Sunday morning BLT with This Isn't Bacon. I really love the brand. It's probably the vegan mock meats that you can buy in the supermarket, the one I'd be most proud and comfortable kind of serving to non-vegans and meat eaters. Even just the smell, I mean, when you cook it in your house, it's so realistic. So I was already a huge fan of the bacon rashers, and I really liked the lardons as well. I thought they added such a nice kind of smoky flavor. We had them with a carbonara, didn't we?
Yeah,
the team kindly sent us everything to make a delicious carbonara, and texture was great, kind of crispy but with that slight chewiness that you'd expect. I loved them. How about you?
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, I don't when I first went vegan and this product came out, This Isn't Bacon. I was sort of raving about them, telling meat eaters they had to try it. My brother-in-law went vegetarian and he loved it. So I think, for anyone that's worried about missing out on bacon sandwiches, it's definitely the one to go to. The lardons, I loved the idea that, because they, like you said, they sent us everything to make a carbonara. So I think the sauce was from Sackler, and then there was some pasta, and the lardons. So the sauce was like a creamy carbonara sauce.
Yeah.
So kind of chucked it all in. It was such a nice quick meal, and it actually used to be my daughter's favorite meal, carbonara, before she went vegan, going back quite a few years now. So it was lovely to serve it to her and say, you can have carbonara again, because it's not something I've cooked since going vegan, actually. I found them quite salty, but I do love salty things, so that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. But I think for some people they might be a little bit too salty. But yeah, really good texture, and a lovely, made a really good dish. They're also launching This Isn't Pork cocktail sausages as well in Tesco's and Sainsbury's. So yeah, we're looking forward to trying them. I think the team are going to send those over. They're $2.75 and the bacon lardons are $2.95. Well, for our second taste test this week, we delved into the world of Novish, which is a brand from the Netherlands. And I hadn't heard of it before. I think it's not been in the UK very long. It's available at Ocado and the Vegan Kind supermarket. But they're sort of hoping to get into more retailers. So it was a real joy to discover this brand, actually, and I am now a huge fan. What did you think of it, Gabriella?
I was so pleasantly surprised by these products. So I tried I suppose they're kind of like fish nuggets, fish bites.
Yeah, they're kind of sort of cubes, aren't they? So they're sort of chunkier than nuggets. Definitely.
They're kind of the white fish texture, I suppose, and then in breadcrumbs, like you would imagine a fish finger, traditional fish finger to be.
Yeah.
When I got them out of the freezer and onto a baking tray to cook them, I thought, these aren't going to be for me. There was quite a fishy smell, and having not had that taste for a number of years, I thought, I'm not sure I'm going to enjoy these. And I've previously found kind of vegan fish replacements not that enjoyable, but stuck with it, popped them in the oven, And wow, they were absolutely delicious. I was so pleasantly surprised. Texture was amazing, really realistic, that lovely kind of light flakiness. So really just a lovely texture with that crispy breadcrumb on the outside. And then there was a hint of, I suppose, a more fish flavour without being synthetic or overwhelming or sickly. For me, it was a real perfect balance for that fish tasting alternative for somebody who hasn't eaten something like that in a long time. What did you think?
Yeah, so the Vish bites with a V are £2.99 at the Vegan Kind supermarket, or £2.50 at Ocado. They also do fish sticks, which are more like fish fingers and fish burgers. And they also sent us the fillets. I'm not sure where they're available yet. I'm not sure if they're in the UK yet, but I loved the bites. They were my favorite out of the range. They, like you say, they're sort of light and fluffy. They weren't too greasy, and they had a really nice sort of lemony flavor. I kind of picked up. Yeah, I would definitely buy these, and I don't tend to buy vegan fish. I think I was sent Moving Mountains fish fingers a while ago, and they're great. I wouldn't eat them myself just because I just wouldn't eat fish fingers and things like that anyway. I suppose it's more like you think of it as more like a kid food, don't you?
You would, but I am partial to a mock fish finger sandwich.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I give them to my son and he does not notice the difference. And he'll sort of say, well, are these real? And I'm like, no, but they're the ones that you like. And he's like, oh, okay, yes, I'll have those. But the fish bites were great. I had them with like a massive salad, and then I had some more with I made some homemade tartar sauce with I know I haven't made it before. I just kind of googled the recipe and just sort of chucked it all in together. Hellman's vegan mayonnaise, some capers, and chopped up gherkins and some lemon juice. Oh, it was amazing.
That sounds absolutely delicious.
I couldn't stop eating it. You know how I like things sort of pickled.
Yeah.
The sticks were great too. I really liked those. I'd say the burgers were sort of a different texture. They were more like chicken burgers to me. I don't know if it's because they were more sort of compressed. They weren't as light and flaky. Still really good, but I probably wouldn't choose those. I'd definitely go for the bites over the other things. And the same with the fillets. They were sort of obviously big and flat. The breadcrumb was sort of more orangey, whereas I found the crumb on the bites and the sticks just a bit lighter and I don't know, somehow a bit more natural. But yes, I would encourage anyone to head on over to Ocado or the Vegan Kind supermarket and give them a go.
Definitely. And you know, if you're like me and you were put off by trying something with a fishy flavor, now you no longer eat that food. I know over Christmas I tried a lot of the supermarket brands, things like their fake prawn tempuras, and found those flavors quite difficult to stomach. I think Novish, fish with a V, have really got this right. I was surprised and delighted.
I think the vegan fish market is going to really, it's the next thing that's going to see a huge boom, I think. Because obviously we've had a huge uptake in the vegan mock meats over the last 2 or 3 years. And I think fish is the next kind of domain, especially with Seaspiracy. I mean, that's just blown up, hasn't it? So many people are saying they're giving up fish after watching that.
Huge. I've had so many conversations, or even overheard so many people say that's really kind of shocked them into making a change. So it's a perfect time to be taste testing and for them to be launching when it's so part of the conversation.
Yeah, exciting times. Well, that brings us to the end of this week's news and reviews section. But don't go anywhere, because next up I'll be speaking to Sam Dennigan, who is CEO of Strong Roots, the frozen food company that makes plant-based food for busy people. He's a champion for ending veg poverty, and he also discusses how frozen vegetables can be really good for our health. Hi Sam, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Strong Roots, it's very much a sort of a plant-based company, isn't it? Do you follow a plant-based diet or are you vegan?
In our house, we tend to be a balanced diet as opposed to anything omitted. So we've definitely reduced our animal-based protein input by 75% over the last kind of 3 to 5 years, especially with all of the samples and product tasting and stuff that goes on in the business. But we're not exclusively vegan, and I think that's that's the ethos of the brand as well. We're trying to be the Sherpa for the consumer, which kind of elevates the convenience of their plate as opposed to being a meat replacer or being an animal protein replacer, and that's where we fit, and it kind of the products fit in my lifestyle the same way. So by making better vegetable products, we can eat more of them, and less meat, as opposed to focusing on omission.
Kind of reducitarian, as they might call it.
Reducitarian, flexitarian, it depends on the week, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, ultimately, our goal is to help people eat less meat. We've done advertising campaigns relative to that, with the slogans of no meat to veg and other calls to action. But ultimately, we try to be a brand that doesn't preach, and practice what we live, live what we do, which is balance, primarily, and following that kind of Mediterranean diet, by eating more vegetables, pulses, and seeds, etc.
So you come from a family background in food, don't you? How did this kind of influence you and inspire you when you were setting up Strong Roots?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm kind of still doing what I was doing since the start of my career. So I left school, I went to art college briefly for a year, and then I started working in my family's business, which is a fresh produce, distribution company. And I learned everything there was to know about, fruit, vegetables, potatoes, the agriculture, primary producer elements to it, all the way to, trends and forecasting for consumers in the home and what they're eating and what was changing, etc. So I had this 10-year experience in my family's business before starting Strong Roots. And the joke that I make regularly is that I'm just a fancy green grocer selling frozen vegetables instead of fresh ones. But I've kind of been doing this for the last 20 years, in one shape or another.
I have to say, the spinach bites are a household favourite here. My daughter is always asking for them. She's vegan.
Awesome.
Which is quite annoying because I always forget to pick them up, so I'm having to go out to Tesco's to grab them. I think they're in Co-op as well, aren't they? They're really good.
Yeah, our spinach, but we're really proud of our spinach bites. They were one of our first. I think they were our sweet potato fries came first, and then our spinach bites were in the second batch of new products that we released. And we're particularly proud of those because we took a product from a manufacturer's catalog, and it had cheese in it, and they were like a spinachy, cheesy, dairy filled kind of, unhealthy kind of appetizer or canapé. And we kind of reverse engineered it, and we were like, what can we use to make the spinach more creamy instead of having the dairy, and still get that comfort food, delicious, texture at the same time as a kind of crisp bite. And at the same time, we were trying to replace gluten with dehydrated vegetable crumbs instead of breading. So that product in its simplicity is actually incredibly complicated to do, and is even more complicated to make delicious, because it's literally just vegetables, every part of it. And it's a favorite in our house as well. I regularly take that out at dinner parties with some sriracha mayo, and there's never any left.
Lovely. Yeah, you're making me hungry now. I do actually have a bag in the freezer, so I might have to crack them open after the podcast.
Awesome.
I love the ethos behind your brand. Firstly, that it's plant-based food designed for busy lives. Would you say your products are kind of healthy alternatives for when we don't have time to cook from scratch?
That's it in a nutshell. We, as I was saying to you off recording, we want to be the Sherpas for the consumer. We want the consumer to be the champion who gets to the top of the mountain, and we just want to help to get them there. We exist to elevate the plate and make it easier for people to eat healthier in a very short space of time. So, everything we do is plant-based. We're taste first, because a lot of plant-based products and a lot of alternative, replacement products can often miss the taste piece because of all of the other things that they're trying to check the boxes on. So we start with taste and then work backwards. So everything that we do is ridiculously tasty. A large part of our consumer uses our products center of plate, side of plate, but ultimately we're trying to create hacks for people so that they can eat healthily more frequently. And we're also completely comfortable with being the backup in the freezer. We know that people try and prepare fresh meals as much as possible, but when you just couldn't be arsed, we want to play that role. So we make sure that we're always in your freezer in some capacity.
This is it. I mean, we have to be realistic, don't we? As much as I personally and a lot of our listeners would love to be eating a completely whole food plant-based diet 100% of the time, we live in a very hectic modern world where jobs get in the way, children, well, not get in the way, but demand our time, and we're juggling a lot. So having things like that in the freezer is always a godsend for me. Do you think frozen vegetables are as good for us as fresh ones?
They're scientifically proven to be better. So as a result of the lack of travel days in the supply chain, they're more nutrient dense than fresh vegetables. Obviously, in an environment where the supply chain is incredibly efficient, so things that are grown in Britain and have a very short amount of days to supermarket shelf and then consumers home are obviously going to be able to stand up against them. But things that are unseasonal, frozen is the best way to eat nutrient dense food out of season, because it's ultimately frozen, from the fields by IQF, individually quick frozen, each item or each chip or each burger. And it contains that, and it stops the bacterial degradation of the product from the get-go. So it's better. That's not to say that people shouldn't eat fresh vegetables. Obviously, there's nothing quite like the crunch or the juiciness of a tomato or something like that. And I certainly wouldn't ever completely migrate away, but it is an incredibly efficient, nutritious, way of eating, which also completely eradicates food waste as well. So the more frozen you can have for nutrition is also the more food waste you're eradicating from your life as well.
Yeah, that's quite a revelation to me, actually, because you always sort of feel like you're cheating if you're getting out the frozen peas or something. But actually, if they've got more nutrients in them, then we should all be stocking up. Tell us about your Make Veg Poverty History campaign.
Yeah, really, really exciting program that we've been working on for the best part of 9 months, through the COVID pandemic, basically. Initially trying to figure out how we can best serve the consumer and also society at the same time, with spending our marketing dollars in a way that can benefit and be more conscious capitalism than we've ever done before. So we were looking for a cause to support. As a business, we have very, very active and vocal employees and staff who feel that businesses can be better. So in the middle of 2020, we decided, among other things, to try and find a cause that was worth supporting, and that was something that we could, very support incredibly well based on our knowledge and our skill set as a food business. And also we decided at the same time to become a B corporation, which has happened relatively recently for us. The Make Veg Poverty History campaign is specifically an effort against food insecurity. There is a unacceptable amount of food insecurity in the UK. I think that the timing couldn't have been better with the rightfully elevated press that Marcus Rashford achieved around the problems of lower social demographic households just not getting the food that they need. There's a huge difference between the quality of food and the volume of food. I think it's really easy to go to one of the fast food chains and spend a couple of pounds to buy a big meal, but the nutritional density of that is nowhere near fresh or frozen vegetables. And the more we looked at the food insecurity situation and the more research that we did, which was quite conclusive, it was that essentially like 1 in 4 Britons don't have enough fruit and veg in their diet, and it's because they can't access it, or because of poor education around food, don't know what to do with it when they do have it. But the access thing is huge. So we are a food company, we're a frozen food company, and when we started trying to figure out how we could help with food insecurity, we just initially reached out to some food banks to figure out like what their struggles were, and we were fascinated and horrified to understand that actually there's no freezers in the food banks. Everything is ambient, and a lot of the time not wouldn't be good to eat on a daily basis with no kind of balance. So immediately we found a way that we could help and like tangibly help and get hands on with it straight away. So we collaborated with an outfit called Banquet, which is a company that helps link big surplus amounts of food with food banks between retailers, etc. And we've also been working with other community groups to try and understand what the needs for their areas are, which we'll be doing much more work on through the second and third quarter of this year, which are just going live at the moment. So ultimately, it's not good enough that in a first world country that we have third world conditions in certain communities. And it's very easy for us to help bring awareness to that fact, which will ultimately lead to, us, taking conclusive evidence to the government in the UK to try and convince them to do something about it. So ultimately, this is something that alerts people to the issues at the same time as allows us to walk the walk as opposed to just talk the talk. So we got the 2-time Olympian Nicola Adams involved, who's been a great ambassador to try and elevate that message to more people. So we're going to be working with her, for the foreseeable future on that. And also there's been great response from the major broadcasters and press, and it really showed us how much of a support there can be for this, but also how much of a need there is for it as well. Like we set up a single food bank in Hackney, which was oversubscribed every single day that it was open. I think with 150 food packages delivered every day to people in need. And that's just really scratching the surface on where we need to go with this. So the plan is to roll this out nationally, to create more partnerships with other bigger organizations, and also make it a global initiative as well, because the issues are not Britain centric. We've the same issues here in the US where I live, as well as other countries where we distribute our products. So this is a way that we can help, and something that we know a lot about. So that's our Make Veg Poverty history.
So apart from raising awareness of the issue, I mean, what's your main aim? To kind of make sure there's freezers in food bank?
I mean, that is it's part of a solution to the overall problem, but the aim is to assist in the eradication of food insecurity in a first world country like Britain. Like it's not acceptable that people are hungry in London, never mind more rural communities. There is access to food. There is huge food waste, and if we can leverage one to the other, the problem is solved. So the mission and the goal is to solve the problem ultimately.
Yeah. So would that involve kind of partnering with supermarkets to stop them, throwing out food that is actually okay? But
supermarkets are actually really good and proactive about getting involved in these programs. They have their own programs. All of them have their own programs in this respect. I think what they would probably say is that they've only scratched the surface too, and that everything can be improved. It takes manpower. It takes highlighting the subject for the right people to do something about it. And that's our goal for this year. Our goal is to bring it to a place, to keep the conversation going, and to make sure that even at a level of government, that there is efforts and budget and proper change that's done to help solve the problem, and not just sweep it under the rug. But the retailers are a big part of this. And their food distribution landscape is a huge part of needing to connect the dots between availability and need. So yes, absolutely, we'd love to work with the retailers, because they play such a huge role, but it needs to be much further than that. It needs to be an absolute requirement nationally, as opposed to just from commerce or just from government.
It's so hidden, isn't it? Food poverty. And I think, where you do kind of come into contact with it, as it were, is when you're out shopping and there's maybe a basket or a box where you can drop food from your shopping. But of course, you wouldn't ever drop frozen food or fresh vegetables into that box. You'd always go for perhaps a thing of cereals or some crisps or tinned beans or something like that. So yeah, it's definitely a system that needs a bit of an overhaul.
Yeah, and our aim is to change exactly what you've just described, putting in the infrastructure so that more food categories can be donated outside of what you described.
So finally, what tips would you offer to people eating a vegan diet on a low budget?
I think, frozen is a great option. I think strong roots is a great option within that. I think one of the things that people tend to shy away from trying a more vegan inclusive diet is their perception of the loss of protein, without the knowledge of how much pulses can play a part in that. So for me, it's about learning more about how to move to a vegan diet, the role of pulses, the role of grains, the role of alternative grains and seeds, which mightn't be kind of a day-to-day part of traditional diet, but are very, very nutritionally dense, and can easily play the role that meat has been playing for so long. I think understanding a lot about our consumer, it's about having those backups, and having something that is easy to make. And I think 2-3 years ago is hugely different to today. There is scores of challenger brands entering the retailers now that have alternative meat proteins, whether it's beef or chicken or fish replacement. We're there for the veg forward consumers. A lot of people are not trying to replace meat; they're just wanting to eat more veg, and that's the role that we play. So if you want a healthy chip or a different type of vegetable, or a veggie burger that you can pop into the toaster and have ready in a couple of minutes, it's not complicated. And I think, I would say, no differently than, for the advice that you would get when you're studying or when you're focusing on work. It's about being well stocked and not having to plan and knee jerk into, one of the food delivery platforms that is easy to get vegan food, but it might have incredibly high calorific value in comparison to the stuff that you could plan for the retailers. So I think that'd be my steer anyway.
Bit of meal prep and organization, which I'm terrible at.
Overnight oats and all the things that we forget about.
Exactly. Like, why didn't I do them last night? So sustainability is obviously a huge driver for you. What kind of initiatives do you have within the company that kind of make sure that you're operating in a sustainable way?
The answer is everything. So I mentioned about our B Corp involvement. We've been certified earlier in the quarter, and what that's about is doing better business holistically, whether it's people, planet, and profit. It's this idea of the triple bottom line and conscious capitalism. So everything from the veg waste that we produce in our manufacturers is recycled and used to create biogas that ultimately powers the electricity in some of the factories, run off rainwater, water used in production being reused for irrigation. We've cut 40 tons of plastic in the last year out of our supply chain by simply moving from polyethylene packaging to cardboard packaging in the UK, and internally being conscious and careful about how we recycle waste, what partners we're working with, energy usage in offices, reduction of travel for virtual meetings, which obviously has happened by force in the last year, but not something we feel we need to return to. So it's a holistic approach, and every effort across the business is made to have a lighter carbon footprint. And actually, before the end of the year, we're going to start printing our carbon usage per product on the packs, which is something that brands like Oatly already do, for example. We're kind of following in their footsteps to make sure that regardless of what it is, we try and improve it. So we'll be putting that on packs before the end of the year. We're excited about just, I suppose, owning our footprint and being able to do something about it. So it is all encompassing.
That's fantastic. I mean, we've talked on the podcast before about the sort of, a kind of equivalent to a traffic light system with, the how ethical or sustainable your food purchases are. So I think anything that makes the consumer more aware and gives them that sort of choice where they can actually, it's just visibility, isn't it? And because it's so difficult, it's so difficult for everyone, not just people on a vegan diet, to kind of make choices that are even just like you say, buying vegetables, where's it come from? Has it arrived by ship? Has it arrived by plane? What is the footprint of that item? So
we've partnered with a great company called Carbon Cloud, and there's already a lot of businesses signed up with them. You can go on their site and you can see the actual carbon footprint per kilo that the various different products are making. So I highly recommend anyone who's looking for a solution to that to contacting the guys over there.
Oh, great. I'll have a look at that. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Sam. And it's been really lovely chatting to you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. And as I said earlier, please do share our podcast with your friends, with your family, on social media. You can tag us at Vegan Food and Living and at Simply Vegan Podcast. We want to reach as many people as possible and inspire and educate everyone to live a more ethical life that benefits us, our health, the planet, and the animals. They don't have to be vegan. You might just be planting the seed for them to do a bit of research, have a listen to the podcast, and who knows what might happen. Tune in next Tuesday for our next episode, where I'll be interviewing Simon Hill, who is the host of the Plant Proof podcast. He's a nutritionist, a physiotherapist, and he's the author of a new book called The Proof is in the Plant. Well worth a listen. So join me next week.